So you've probably seen a formula like this in math class: x equals negative b plus minus radical b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And what does this actually do? Well, this formula is what we use to solve quadratic equations. These are equations in this form: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and a can't be 0. Basically, if you use this formula, the quadratic formula, and plug in your numbers you have for a, b, and c, you'll get the answer for what x is. And you can have up to 2 possible solutions. That's why we have this plus minus over here. So how do we go about solving this? Well, first we need numbers for a, b, and c. A is the coefficient of the x squared term, b is the coefficient of the x term, and c is the constant. So let's do an example here. Example 1. Say we have the quadratic equation x squared minus x minus 30 equals 0. In order to find the solutions, what x is in this situation, we're going to have to use a quadratic formula, but first we have to identify what a, b, and c are. So a is in front of the x squared term, a is in front of the x squared term. So in this case, a is just going to be 1. B is in front of the x term, so b is just going to be negative 1. And c is by itself, just negative 30. So now I just have to plug this into this formula. So x equals negative b, so that's negative 1, plus or minus square root. So b squared is negative 1 squared, minus 4ac, so that's 1 times negative 30. And all of this is going to be over 2a, which is 2 times 1. Now it's just basic arithmetic. Negative 1 is 1, so it's 1 plus minus radical negative 1 squared is 1, minus 4 times 1 times minus 30, that's just going to be plus 120. And 2 times 1 is 1. That's just 1 plus or minus square root 121 over 2, which is 1 plus or minus 11 over 2. So at this point we have to consider both cases, the plus case and the minus case. And for that, let's just branch it out over here. So let's do 1 plus 11. 1 plus 11 is 12, and 12 over 2 is 6. So let's say we have 1 plus 11 over 2 is just going to be 6. That's one of our solutions. Now 1 minus 11 over 2, well 1 minus 11 is just negative 10. So negative 10 over 2 is just going to get us negative 5. So 1 minus 11 over 2 equals negative 5. And these are the solutions, 6 and negative 5. We have 2 distinct solutions. But is there a way we can check how many solutions? Because I said earlier we can have up to 2 solutions. So we can also have 0 solutions or 1 solution. Well, there is. And that's where you have something called the, sorry about the wind, the discriminant. The discriminant D is just b squared minus 4ac. You might recognize it. It's right over here in the formula. It's what's under the square root. So there's a few rules about this. If D is greater than 0, whatever it might be, then there's going to be 2 distinct real solutions. If D equals 0, then 1 real solution. And if D is less than 0, no real solutions. That's how it is. So this way you can easily check how many solutions, how many real solutions is this quadratic gonna have. In our case, b squared minus 4ac ended up being, if we go back to our work here, we can see it ended up being 121. That's greater than 0, so we knew we had 2 solutions, and we did 6 and negative 5. But if you want to check in advance using the discriminant, then absolutely you can see how many solutions you're going to end up with. So that's the discriminant. Let's do another example here. Example 2. Let's try and do them with numbers that won't be so pretty. 2x squared minus 3x plus 7, let's say, equals 0. Alright, so we're going to identify a, b, and c so we can plug them into this formula. Well, a is in front of the x squared, so a equals 2. b is in front of the x, so b is going to be negative 3, and c is by itself, c is 7. So plug and chug. X equals negative b, so that's negative negative 3, plus minus square root of b squared, so that's negative 3 squared, minus 4a is 2, c is 7, 4ac, all of this over 2a, so it's just 2 times 2. Math. 3 plus minus square root of negative 3 squared, that's just the same thing as 3 squared, which is just 9. 9 minus 4 times 2 times 7. 4 times 2 times 7. 56. That's square root of 9 minus 56. Square root 9 minus 56 over 4. And you might start to see a little problem here, but we'll continue anyway. 9 minus 56. So 9 minus 56 is negative 47. Uh-oh. We can't take the square root of a negative number. You can't. Because there's no two numbers that when you multiply them, there's no number where when you multiply by itself, you're gonna get a negative number. So, what can we do? Not a law. All we can say, no real solutions. And we could have checked this in advance using the discriminant. What was the discriminant here? Well, it was what's under this radical over here, which we calculated to be negative 47. We could have checked from the start that this would have no real solutions. And that way you can do all your work in advance. So yeah, this is the quadratic formula. It's very useful, it's very commonplace, everyone knows it. It's a bit of a messy formula, but if you memorize it, you can do great things with these quadratics. That's all, guys. See y'all next time.